Hey besties and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be doing the third and final part of responding to your K-pop opinions. Now, let's get started with the video. I decided to talk about all of these together since they're pretty short, but for the Stray Kids one, I kind of agree, although I was definitely more into them when they had the softer and quirky concepts, and I honestly think the music was better too. There are some members where I feel like they just don't really suit that type of concept. There's just some idols out there that only fit a certain concept, and that's the case for some of the members. I do think it'd be nice for them to do a softer or brighter concept since they've been doing the same thing for a few years. For the G-Idol Trinity release, I don't agree at all because the only release out of those that I like is Green Card. As for IVE, I also don't think it's one of the best trilogy releases, but I do think that it would be great if I Am came before after. I do think that one of the best trilogy releases is the DNA, Fake Love, and Idol Ones and the iconic Re Festival trilogy. For the Blackpink one, I definitely agree because I barely rewatch any of Blackpink's performances, but that was definitely their best ever. Their energy was amazing. They were pretty much 100% live and the whole performance was just so fun and captivating. I wouldn't really say it's my top 10 favorite performances ever, but it's one of the best. Honestly, I don't know that many Astro songs to know how good they are at the fresh or cute concept, but at least from I've seen, they do a great job at it. I love their songs like All Night, Crazy Sexy Cool, Candy Sugar Pop, and Baby, and they feel so refreshing. I do think some boy groups that do this type of concept really well are TXT, Pentagon, and 17. However, they still do an amazing job at it, so I really agree with this opinion. I partially agree with this opinion, because there were some really pretty and creative album designs, but not gonna lie, a lot of them looked like Canva projects, like they were just all over the place. A really good example of this is Girls' Generation's The Boys and most of Kare's old albums. A lot of the album designs at that time just either looked like a Photoshop mess or a random group photoshoot that's oddly small. Although there were definitely some ugly ones, I do think that era was the most creative and were at least eye-catching in some way. Oddly enough, I do kind of prefer the second-gen album design style rather than now, but most recent album designs are just way too simple and toned down with just some lines and no real creativity, or at least for a lot of fourth-gen groups. I don't think that second-gen had the best designed albums, but they do have some amazing ones. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a meme song, just because meme songs are usually unintentional or have a really funny part in it, and this song doesn't really, but I do agree with the second-gen campiness of it. I don't think it sounds like a second-gen song at all, but the style and music video are definitely giving camp from that era, especially with the irony and funny references to other movies, but I think it's more of a campy satirical song rather than a model meme song. So I mostly agree with this opinion. I definitely understand how frustrating that can be, because it's very annoying when a group, especially an older group that's been around for a while, only gains traction when remembering their old songs, but then don't care about them. A pretty good example is Kara, because they're widely known for their great discography with songs like Mr., Mamma Mia, Step, and so much more, yet when they had their comeback late last year, it was absolute silence. Maybe some girl group stan accounts talked about it, but where were the Twitter bitches that talked about how they need to come back, although they disbanded years ago? I feel like people are the same with the Wonder Girls, because I just know that if they all had a reunion comeback, people would barely talk about it. Of course I get that older groups are ones that are inactive easily become forgotten since there's like a new group debuting and comebacks happening almost every week, but if you're praising a group and calling yourself a stan yet don't care when they come back or when they're not as popular is pretty weird. I don't think it's a big deal, but it's definitely annoying sometimes, so I agree. I honestly agree with this so much, and it honestly needs to be talked about way more. Of course, I understand that when you like or admire an idol a lot, you always like to believe that they're a good person and almost get heartbroken when they do something messed up or offensive. But you all gotta realize that these idols are not toddlers, well, maybe except Baby Monster and New Jeans, but most of these idols have a conscience and the ability to take in criticism when needed. I can understand telling people to not give hate or death threats, but some of you all don't realize that it's way more harmful to the community or person offended by acting like there's no problem and they're being too sensitive rather than just letting the idol getting their needed criticism. I think a good example is the recent Chaeyoung situation, because although she received a lot of criticism as she should, she was still protected and, as you can tell, is perfectly fine career-wise and is still in the group. Yeah, and it might make them feel bad, but maybe they need to feel bad sometimes so they can feel how their actions affected people. You can have whatever feeling or opinion you want on a certain situation, but to go on the internet and gaslight fans that that idol just doesn't know anything is super harmful and doesn't even do anything, because people are still going to tell them the truth and the idols are still going to get away with it by just releasing a small apology, unless it's an issue like breaking the law. Overall, I definitely agree, because saying that an idol was wrong or ignorant for something isn't going to make them break down and have them leave. They'll be fine. I definitely agree with this because honestly, I never understood why they have to make an official position for who the matinee individual is. Like, we usually don't know who the oldest is, so why do we need to know who the youngest is? Their age isn't a talent or ability, so it just doesn't make sense to state it unless it's more of a cultural thing. It's similar with the visual position too, like why does it even need to be a position in the first place? I understand that visuals do play a big part in K-pop groups and some people do get into groups from seeing how attractive someone is, but why does one member need to have the position of the visual? If anything, I feel like the visual member would feel pressure to always keep up with having the best visuals. I feel like it's especially insulting when people always compare the visual member to another member that they don't think fits that category. Like, I think there shouldn't be a visual position in the first place. I also don't really understand the sub-vocalist position either, but at least it's something to do with their skills and not appearance. It's just really weird overall. I also really agree with this one, because although groups that are popular in the West are talented too, a lot of people do act like the ones that aren't popular or successful in the West aren't relevant or successful at all. A great example of this is Red Velvet, because even when SM tried to make them popular in the West by releasing an English version of Bad Boy and collaborating with American artists, they still didn't achieve that much popularity in the West even though there are a lot of international fans. However, they're still one of the biggest girl groups in Korea and are known for so many iconic songs and have a lot of brand deals. They may not be as popular as they were a few years ago, but that's most likely due to their hiatus and not having comebacks as much. Anyways, they aren't that popular in America yet they're still very relevant. Another example would be because she's still extremely popular in Korea despite netizens criticizing her something, but she's still successful and the only people that really know her internationally are ones who are already K-pop fans. So yeah, it doesn't make sense for people to call groups irrelevant just because they aren't well known in America. I'm a bit split on this one just because although I love second gen so much and I do feel like people need to appreciate it more, I do feel like 4th gen fans do appreciate it to some level. I don't know if they're specifically 4th gen fans, but newer K-pop fans seem to talk about how iconic 2nd gen is and only really talk shit about groups that are terrible like Super Junior or Big Bang. Even though most people just use it as an innocent joke and not always as an insult, it is pretty messed up when they only talk about their age and quote-unquote told they were when the hag in question is just 32 years old. I do however not see people appreciate 1st gen much, but that could also be because 1st gen was a pretty short era. I do think it should overall be appreciated more because there's so many underrated groups from that generation that deserve more praise, but I don't think it's disrespected as much either, so I mainly agree. I know this is pretty much half of a K-pop opinion, but I'll still talk about it, because I agree. This probably just a not as serious opinion, but Loona were really in their mother form and #1 on every chart in my playlists. I don't listen to Beyonce as much, but I grew up listening to her and she's truly the mother of all mothers, so I definitely agree. Even though blinks can sometimes just be defensive because the girls do go through a lot of unnecessary hate, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of blinks that are just very hateful. Of course I know not every blink is like that and can be the sweetest people ever, but the way I look at a shorts of someone listing their top 5 groups and blinks will spam the comment section on how they're apparently wrong because Blackpink wasn't included. Some of you all need to realize that it's okay to love a group and accept that not everyone loves them too. I know that not everyone likes Red Velvet or TXT, but you don't see me hating them for it. It's also very weird to me on how fast some of you all switch up on the girls when they do something that's not even bad, like them twerking or getting involved in a dating rumor. Like, aren't you all the same ones that apparently love them so much? Like I said, I know not every blink is bad, and it's just the huge percent of toxic ones that take up the most space on social media. But there's a difference between being savage and just being rude and disrespectful. I pretty much agree with this, because I have noticed that since the 4th gen started, especially in late 2018, many entertainment companies seem to have been focusing more the dancing part for idols rather than the vocals or rap. Not to say that there's no real vocalists, because we still have some amazing and incredibly talented singers and rappers in this generation, but I definitely think that groups prioritize their performance skills rather than anything else. I don't think it's a problem really, because the dancing and performance aspect is extremely important to a group or artist and is usually what attracts fans in the first place. But what about when we're just listening to the music, or when there's a slower song that doesn't require a big performance or choreography? Don't get me wrong, I love entertainers that entertain, performers that perform, but you can tell there's a decrease of groups where most of them are amazing or at least good vocalists compared to older generations. It could become a problem when they have slower songs and only excel in the performance category and not the singing part. I do think groups and companies are focused on different things within each era, but I would like it more if they made these groups learn different skills with a balance instead of emphasizing on one thing and only learning the basics of another important part of being an idol. I definitely agree with this, especially seeing the fact that companies have been debuting literal AI as a group. Now this could just be because I'm an artist and can't stand how people are trying to replace original art with AI art, but I really don't like the idea of these AI groups. Yeah, there are some cool things to it, such as real people not having to be as exhausted as they usually would, but there's also so many downsides to this. I know the person who made this opinion isn't saying whether this is a good or bad thing, but I really hope this doesn't become normal later, because to me, there's nothing that can replace the genuine talent and personalities of idols and the feeling of seeing these real people at concerts and fan signs. Although they can do the impossible that idols couldn't do, I just don't see this working out in the long run. But I do agree with the fact that it does make people imagine the infinite possibilities of what they could do. I think even with their short trend career as IZ*ONE, they were already really successful and popular, but I do think that they could have maintained that rise of success if they were still active. In a way, I'm happy they disbanded, just because I think for a temporary group, they had a good amount of title tracks that gave them their own identity, and because now, we have groups like IVE, LE and Dunby solo songs. I would have liked to see them go on for at least one more comeback, but I think they wrapped things up on a good note. So even though I'm fine with them being disbanded since most of them are still active, I do agree that they'd still have same if not more success. Although INMIX has amazing vocals and I love their tone most of the time, I really disagree and think that aespas are better. I don't think it's really a competition or anything, but since the two are compared, aespa is better in my opinion. I'm not a vocal professional, but aespas seem more clean and their range is so wide and all of their voices just go so well together. I do like Inmix's vocals a lot and I know it's the company's fault, but I feel like they may clearly sing too high. Like her lower range is beautiful, so why are we making her squeal in the studio? I think they're giving them songs that suit their voices more, but I just personally feel like aespa's voices are better. And that's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you'd want, and have a good day. Bye besties.